Into the Great Wide Open, Part 4. The light had me frozen, trapped in my own body as every nerve was electrified. I tried my damnedest to move an inch, but I was powerless. It started to lift me into the air slowly. My body was convulsing as I rose. Just when I thought it would take me completely, the light flickered. Like a light bulb going bad, it died, and I saw the flying saucers sway like a drunk sailor as I fell to the ground. The unidentified flying object wasn't very intimidating then, looking like a rickety puppet who had a few strings cut as it lost control and crash-landed in a burst of green flame. In its wake were snapped trees and the blackened remains of any ground foliage. "What the hell was that?" I said out loud as I picked myself up. My legs were shaking, but I needed to get moving. There came a pulse of blue energy, a current of electricity arcing across the landscape. I was just getting used to dinosaurs, but now I was living through the Lost World and War of the Worlds all at once. I got to stop reading that pulp magazine stuff. There's no way that was space aliens. Hell, what else could it be? I forced myself to accept it, regardless of whether I believed it or not. It happened. The Spaniards and the pirates were coming my way, and I couldn't stick around for another second. I moved to investigate the crashed saucer, moving through the brush until I came to scorched ground cleared all the way to the dirt. There it was, half buried like an errant discus. It didn't seem like something that could travel the stars then. Sparks were flying out and the smoke was heavy in the air. I moved closer, and out stepped a little gray fellow with a big head and diamond eyes like pools of oil. He was wearing some coveralls and stylish white boots. There was a gash leaking green blood on the side of his head. "Hey, you doing all right, kid? That was some crash you had there." I didn't know what the hell else to say. How do you make small talk with an alien? The spaceman stumbled about, dazed from the rough landing. He saw me, pulled out a ray gun, and just started blasting. The tree I was standing next to was disintegrated, leaving a pile of ash, and so was the boulder I ran behind for cover. I was out of there faster than a getaway car. The spaceman kept blasting. I ran into the trees and had to make a hard left when I noticed the red-faced meat-eater with horns open its jaws to show its pearly whites. I was moving through the brush, but I heard it stomping behind me and the rumble it made with each breath. I forded a creek and was lucky enough not to slip on the rocks. I came into a clearing and saw Spaniards across the way in formation with guns at the ready. I made another sharp turn to avoid the army as they opened fire on the dinosaur. But I had to make another quick change in direction when I noticed the band of pirates waiting for me with swords in hand. I had gone in a circle and ended right back to where the saucer crashed. All of them converged on me, and it was pandemonium. One of the pirates chasing me was chomped in half by the dino chasing all of us. The Spaniards reloaded as the alien continued his erratic blaster fire. You were lucky to keep your head in all that. It was a war zone with explosions and debris everywhere. The dust from whatever was disintegrated, and the smoke from the musket volley made it hard to tell where you were going or what was happening. I hit the dirt as the Spaniards opened fire again. The dino was peppered, but largely undeterred from continuing its pirate buffet. The cutthroats were fleeing, except for the captain, who was hell-bent on seeing me dead. I got up to face him, but he knocked me down, and was about to put his sword in my guts when he was dusted, and what was left of him blew in the wind. I was covered in it, and unsure of what to do. The safest place seemed to be the solid metal spacecraft. The alien was caught in the crossfire and wounded. The dino lumbered over to try out the meat on the menu that wasn't domestic, but took a ray gun blast to the face. The extraterrestrial was lucky to avoid the bite, but was buried in the tons of ash that came with disintegrating a dinosaur. I rushed to his position and took cover. It was that or just stand out in the open for the next volley. I was behind the lip of one of the inert rotating discs the saucer was made of. I looked over at the diminutive body riddled with shot as it crawled out of the ash pile. It wasn't dead. I reached for the blaster, but he hit me with something that scrambled my mind. It felt like its thoughts were drilling into my skull. "You? How did you do this? You are ape still playing with stones and wearing pelts. How did you disable my ship?" I clutched my head instinctively, as if it would alleviate the shooting pain burrowing into my brain.
"Ow, you rat bastard! Get out of my head!"
"No. Take me into the ship. I need medical attention." My limbs started moving on their own. I scooped up the alien and brought him inside. I tried fighting it, but my consciousness was in the passenger seat. I entered and saw another one who didn't look as cocksure and cavalier with a blaster.
What the hell happened? We were just supposed to swing by and mess with some cows and butts. This is a disaster. We are going to get in so much trouble.
Shut up. These primates just pelted me with iron by way of rudimentary combustion like a bunch of savages. I don't want to hear your bitching right now. Get the medical pod open now. The one in my arms shouted weakly.
Nothing works. Something knocked out all the power. We are dead. Dead.
I was trying to fight the alien's control, but just stood there like a fool. That was when I had an idea.
Don't even think about it,
he said. I did it anyway. Thought of the nastiest thing I could. Anything to get him out of my head.
Oh, Jesus, that's foul,
he said. I dropped the alien.
You know him?
I didn't wait for an answer, turning to get out of the saucer in a hurry. I got my head out to see a musket in my face and some very angry Spaniards.
Quick, control them to kill each other,
said the healthy alien to the wounded one.
You do it, you don't. I'm bleeding out,
he answered. I was pulled out of the saucer, and they weren't pulling any punches. The beating was just a taste of what torture was coming. A Spaniard hopped down to investigate with his sword ready. He came out with 2 prisoners, presenting them to his commanding officer with a shrug.
Why didn't you control him?
The one weakly asked, coughing up blood.
I tried. His brain was in some other language or something. Not Galactic Common. No.
The one was harshly shoved and ordered to carry his comrade. I had my hands tied and was pulled down the hill by the officer's horse. Every time I tried to get my feet under me, there came the butt of a rifle to the back of my knee. Through bush and over stones, I was cut to pieces by the time we got to the Great Golden Pyramid. The officer had them throw me to my knees in front of him so he could gloat and deride me for being a fool or something. I wouldn't know. I still didn't speak Spanish. They had me crawl up the seemingly endless steps of the pyramid on my bloody hands and knees. When I got to the altar, they tied my arms between 2 stone pillars and brought out the whip. It was a hell of a view from up there. The rainforest looked almost peaceful, and the glittering gold beneath the sun made it seem magical. I tried to focus on that while the twisted piece of leather ripped apart my back. It was lash after brutal lash. I tried to stay stoic, not give him the reaction he wanted, but I soon broke. The whip pulled out sounds of pain I didn't know I was capable of. It hurt more than I was able to accept, and soon it was as if I was watching my torture from outside my body, like I had a seat at the theater watching the worst show there could be. It went on for hours until my blood started to pool around my feet and slip between the gold bricks. There wasn't much left of my back, and not more than a moment of life left in me. The sun was starting to set, and I was starting to slip away. I saw a shadow start at the base of the pyramid and slide up to engulf us at the top. They were wings descending like a cloak. I faded, but I could feel what was coming. Pterodactyls came in like dive bombers, with riders throwing down javelins and dropping piles of meat to attract the bigger carnivores they had been trolling. Viking longships made a silent landing on the beach and stormed El Dorado, burning what they couldn't loot. Mitch and Trevor must have made it, but I didn't know if that was a good thing or not as I watched on from my detached position. The carnage of a raid gone right. It was brutal, but the initial surprise had passed, and now it was a full-on battle. The Spaniards rallied, took to their mounts, and ran through the invading forces. Other tribes joined the fray. Spears and arrows came down like rain, and they blew these whistles that looked like skulls. The sound was an unholy wail, a death call that turned your blood cold. They wore feathers and had on their war paint. It must have been my ignorance. I thought these people were of the same tribe, but that wasn't the right of it. Other bands had joined up with the attacking force, and that beautiful floating city was under siege. The officer watched from atop the pyramid as the smoke bellowed up and the enemy forces broke through his defenses. Language wasn't a barrier anymore. I heard him order artillery and plan out his strategy. This bloody conflict was far from over. The Spaniards manned the fortifications they had left, and a round of cannon fire blew through the shield wall, advancing on their position. The ball of hot iron ripped through flesh and bone, making a twisted path through the formation that had suited them so well in the past. The riders atop the flyers picked off the soldiers manning the cannons, carrying them up to leave them as red paste on the golden bricks below. The mounted cavalry of raptors was effective in cutting down any separated from the larger groupings, as the Triceratops rammed through and scattered them. The gruesome sight of men impaled on its long horns and left to writhe and bleed out like effigies was almost too brutal to bear. The sound of sharp teeth slicing through flesh to snap bones was the first sign of frenzy. The mounts were soon in a bloodlust and gorged themselves while their riders fruitlessly tried to spur them. Larger beasts came up from the water and through the burning remains of the log walls. They had no master and attacked any in their path. The Vikings had freed the slaves, but only to promote chaos. If they had their way, the lot of them would be back in chains following their victory. Thorvald was in his element, cutting down any in his path, roaring in bloody revelry. His axe separated heads from shoulders and lopped off limbs as his eyes rolled back, and he foamed from the mouth in a berserk rage. I saw Horowitz on the back of a stegosaurus. He had the 30 mounted between the armored plates and was burning through what was left of the ammo, while the colonel led troops in a flanking maneuver. Bill and Carmine joined the fray, and even the fools from the yacht banded together, looking for a way to escape the terrible battle. The slaves in the golden halls of the pyramid, and those tending to the fields and mines, had taken up arms in rebellion. A Tyrannosaurus had found its way through the gates as 2 more saucers descended from the sky. The visitors from another world shot out beams that made glass of the sand they passed and vaporized anything unfortunate enough to be caught in their wake. Their assault, however, was short-lived, for the power of this place disabled their spacecrafts and sent them crashing into the ground. I looked on at the Spaniards, Vikings, pirates, slaves, tribesmen, aliens, and dinosaurs in a free-for-all, and was actually quite relieved I was dead. My spirit felt a pull, but it wasn't upward or towards some pearly gates. I was compelled into the pyramid. There, deep within that structure, was a slumbering god. It was a feathered serpent coiled around what looked like the planet Earth. I could see the whole world nestled against its shining scales and cradled by its luminous wings. It roused up from its sleep and turned to acknowledge me.
Yo, what's going on up there?
Jesus Christ, I muttered.
What? Where? He wasn't supposed to be back yet,
said the green god as he stretched his wings. You can talk?
Seems like it, doesn't it?
He countered.
I explicitly told them, no human sacrifices. So what are you doing here?
I was tortured by some Spaniards. They must have thought it was a scenic and dramatic spot for it. I didn't think they meant for me to be a sacrifice, I answered.
Well, when you spilled blood right over my head, it's hard to interpret it as just a coincidence.
Fair enough, I said. So, who are you supposed to be?
And to think, I got your bones out of Mictlan, just to be forgotten. I must have dropped you on your head. I am...
He coughed, and his voice was much clearer. I am Quetzalcoatl. I tried to take it in stride. Michael O'Sullivan, nice to meet you. Cannon fire and what other sounds you would expect from a battle had interrupted what the god was about to say. What a racket! Excuse me for a moment. Quetzalcoatl rose from the golden pyramid, and with a mighty wind from his great wings knocked everyone over and halted the battle. Man, beast, and extraterrestrial alike looked up in awe at the shining light and iridescent dance of color from the god's feathers. What are you all doing on my lawn? I taught you lot to write and track the stars, so you knew to avoid my yard. I even made you a calendar so you knew when I was napping. Madre de Dios, said the officer who had been sword-fighting the colonel. Potter had a similar reaction. Dear God, is that... Yes, it is I, Quetzalcoatl. Now, what is all this? Who would like to explain, Even the dinosaurs looked bashful. No one is jumping to it, huh? I thought not, said the god. Collect the bodies. I will get to resurrecting everyone. I don't want to hear any ifs, ands, or buts. Get moving. The armies and dinosaurs moved like chastised children. collecting the dead and offering the bones for Quetzalcoatl to restore the bodies using a touch of his own blood mixed in to rebirth the fallen. It was quite the process, but the god's presence brought about an understanding and communal knowledge. Everyone had a sudden love for astrology, but no one wanted to talk about it. Even I was brought back and patched up. I was sitting with the colonel and the fellows soon enough. "Damn. I killed that guy over there," said Bill. "And that prick over there cut me open with a damn sword." Carmine nodded along. "I got eaten." Horowitz was almost jealous. "I didn't get killed. Seems like a missed opportunity now. What was dying like?" His two fellow soldiers looked at him with equal parts worry and contempt. "It's not all it's cracked up to be," I said. "It doesn't hurt, but all the stuff before then sure does." The colonel would sit with us for a moment before jumping back up and pacing around. He was thinking everything over and having a nervous breakdown all at the same time. Thorvald was convinced he was in Valhalla, but was very disappointed.
"Where is Odin? I see no feasts. The battle is already over. There is no mead or violence. We are just sitting around chatting in boring peace and understanding."
He kicked a rock and pouted. Mitch and Ioke were playing dice with the aliens, who had introduced themselves as and Pete. The Spaniards and the pirates alike were chatting with those whom they had once enslaved, humbled after having died, and a few of them getting a harsh preview of the afterlife. I felt like I had done enough catching up with the boys, so I went to thank Quetzalcoatl, who was draped around his golden pyramid. "Hey, thanks for bringing me back. Do you mind if I ask you some questions?"
"Shoot,"
said the god. "Are you the reason we got stuck here? How are the dinosaurs and fellows from all over time?"
"Good question. The universe works like a waltz. We sway together with the currents, and the tempo drives it all along to a steady beat. And time is happening all at once. This moment, the next, and the one before are all the same. This island is just in the sweet spot of all that swirling energy."
"You don't say. So can you get me back home?"
"I can make a way for you to return to the outside world, but the timing is up to you," he answered.
"I'll take it. Can you get me to Boston?"
"Sure."
On second thought, if I showed up there, they'd think I went AWOL. Someone has got to show those Germans a thing or two. It wouldn't be right to miss the war."
"Whatever you say."
"Thank you again. I'm going to ask around to see if anyone else wants to go." With that, I made my way back to the group, but the Spaniard officer stopped me part of the way there.
"Pardon me. I would like to apologize for torturing you to death. But in all fairness, you did sink my ship, kill my men, and lead a Spinosaurus to us. But I suppose we did enslave you. Oof, I think I need a quieter life. It was my mission to find the City of Gold, and riches had never lost their luster, even when the brutality of this land claimed so many of my men. I could have saved them if we had focused on survival, but my duty was to greed first and foremost. I lament how things came to pass."
"I hear you, but we are lucky enough to have a second chance. I talked to the giant winged snake, and he said it's possible to get us out of here. I'm sure you could get back to Spain," I said.
"I don't doubt he could, but there is much for me to do here to repent for my misdeeds. Sorry again for whipping you to death,"
said the officer. Water under the bridge. I pat him on the shoulder and moved along. Trevor and that fellow who kept kicking me came over jazzed about something. The former pulled me into an awkward hug.
"Thanks again, bro, for saving me. I'll never forget what you did."
"I'm sure you would have done the same," I lied.
"Listen, I can get you some quality info that'll make you a rich man. Between you and me, the guys here are ripe for the wheeling deal. We can introduce the stock market to them and rake in the money."
"Kid, they live in a city of gold," I pointed out. "Anyway, the giant snake god said he can get us home. Talk to your friends and decide for yourselves." I walked on but saw Thorvald sitting on a rock and sulking. I owed the big guy a lot, so I made my way over. What's the matter?
Valhalla boring. No feasts, no battles, he said.
That's because we aren't dead, buddy. We got brought back, I said. We got a second chance.
Ah, Thorvald still has opportunity to die in glorious battle.
He seemed peppier. I left it at that. The colonel stopped me before I could get to the others. O'Sullivan, your efforts here have been more than commendable. I would submit your name for a medal if we weren't currently in El Dorado. I know what you spoke about with Quetzalcoatl, and I ask you to bring the boys home. I need to stay. I plan to find the bodies of the men I let die and plead with his deity to restore them. Farewell, Michael. I gave him a salute and watched him walk off. I finally got to Bill, Carmine, and Horowitz. They were sitting around chatting like old friends. Potter just gave me the orders. I'm bringing you boys home. I made a deal with the big fella, and he can get us out. Bill and Carmine looked relieved, but Horowitz was conflicted. I got a girl here, he said. There are plenty of girls back home, said Bill. It's not like that. She's different. I don't know how to explain it, said Eugene. And when it doesn't work out, you're stuck on this island for the rest of your life, said Carmine. But I'm willing to take that chance, he answered. I looked to Bill and Carmine. They weren't sticking around. We said our goodbyes. You be good, kid, I told him. Horowitz snuck in a hug and tried not to cry. I went to Quetzalcoatl with the boys and whoever else was planning on going home. He opened a swirling tunnel of light and thunder.
All right. Tell me the time and place, and make sure to go when I say so, he said.
I walked up and said, Fort Lauderdale, 1941. I survived this island. The Nazis will be a piece of cake.
And? Wait for it. Hold on. Now! Go, go, go!
Said Quetzalcoatl. I didn't expect it to be so sudden. I stumbled a bit and dived in. I saw the passage of time speed up and wind back. Things weren't moving in any sort of way I could understand. The blinding light and rippling feeling that reached my bones didn't finish up until I was dumped in the ocean. I gasped and flailed until I got my bearings. I saw the shore and swam for it. I dragged myself onto the beach and looked up at the flooded hotels and destroyed buildings, all moss-covered and overgrown. Florida wasn't this bad when I left. What happened? I walked inland and saw a buggy jumping the dunes. There were a bunch of punks wearing what looked like leather and football pads. Behind them was some mutant alligator with 2 heads and too many legs, glowing a bright green. For a second, I thought I recognized the driver, but he didn't have an orange mohawk and metal arms the last time I saw him. The alien with the red bandana and fake 5 o'clock shadow in the passenger seat tossing exploding boomerangs was something I never thought I'd accept as an everyday occurrence. I looked up at the sky. It was a swirling red with winged demons flying out of the black hole that was the center of it. I heard moaning and groaning, and out from the buildings and over the dunes came a horde of the shambling undead and the mutated monstrosities of the wasteland hunting for flesh. They were being led by hulking demons wielding fiery whips. They spotted me and ordered their underlings to attack. I heard heavy gunfire, and a vehicle ran down the man-eaters coming my way. It was Potter at the wheel with Ioke riding shotgun, pulling up in a scrap metal wreck of a car, plowing through a group of zombies. The Spaniard officer was on a 50 mounted on the back, shooting down the demons and undead that pursued them. The tribesmen threw me a double-barrel shotgun in time for me to duck the fireball the swooping imp lobbed at me and blow him out of the sky. The colonel stepped out of the vehicle. He was wearing a leather trench coat and an eye patch. "Get in," he shouted. "The Nazi vampires will be out when the sun sets, and we need to get back to the others. Thorvald has the blade of St. Peter we need to seal the rift into hell." "What?" "You heard me, O'Sullivan. We got a future to save." I started to swear. The end.